So let's go through paper 2, which is a multiple choice extended option for biology. IGCSE from Cambridge International Examination, CIE, October-November 2018, and this is variant 1, so 0610/21 is the code. Okay, let's get started.
Well, here we go. We're ready to learn to get some knowledge.
Question 1. The sundew is a carnivorous plant that can trap small insects with sticky hairs and then digest them. When an insect gets stuck, other nearby sticky hairs bend over to trap the insect. Which characteristics of living organisms are demonstrated when the sundew traps insects? Is it growth and excretion? Growth? Nope, it's not getting any bigger. Is it getting rid of waste products? No, it's not excretion. It's not getting rid of waste products. So again, it's not growth. Is it sensitivity? Yes, it's responding to changes in its environment. Is it movement? Yep, it's moving. And is it excreting? It's not getting rid of waste products. Is it moving? Yep. Is it sensitivity, responding to its environment? Yes. So the answer here is D. Question 2. Systems of classification show which organisms share more recent ancestors. What is the most accurate system of classification? Is it using anatomy? No, using anatomy is not a very good system because sometimes there are things that vary, some variations. So if you have a frog with 3 legs, that's not a different species, it's just a mutation. Is it using DNA-based sequences? Yep, that sounds like a good one. Using morphology. Using morphology is just the shape, very much like using anatomy. Using a pedigree diagram. Well, no, you don't necessarily know what the ancestors of a particular frog were, or a particular bee, or a bacterium. Okay, so the answer here is B. Question 3. Which part of a plant cell controls the movement of substances into and out of the cell? Is it the cell membrane? Yep, because in the cell membrane there are proteins that can actually control generally what goes in and out, other than some gases. That's just to do with diffusion, and certain other things can diffuse across, but most things are controlled by the proteins in the cell membrane. The cell wall, no, that's just a mesh, just like a mesh that is there for support and structure. Cytoplasm, nope, that just things are dissolved in the cytoplasm, things float around in the cytoplasm, they move, but it doesn't control the movement of the substances. The vacuoles, nope, that stores stuff. So the answer here is A. Question 4. The diagram shows part of a leaf in cross-section. Okay, we have cell X and cell Y. Structures X and Y are both part of the same what? Are they both the same cells? Well, no. X, that is the palisade mesophyll cell. And Y, that's a guard cell. They're obviously different cells. Are they part of the same organs? Yes, they're both part of the leaf, and the leaf is an organ. Are they part of the same tissue? No, you have spongy mesophyll tissue, and you have the palisade tissue. No, they're not part of the same tissue. Are they part of the same vessels? No, the vessels, they're like the xylem and the phloem in a plant. So the answer here is B. Question 5. How do carbon dioxide and oxygen move into and out of a mesophyll cell? Is it active transport? Nope, there's no energy put in. Is it diffusion? Yes, there's no energy put in. Is it respiration? No, that's how they are either used up or produced. Transpiration? No, they're just talking about water when they talk about transpiration. So the answer here is B. Question 6. 4 freshly cut potato cylinders were soaked for 1 hour in different salt solutions before being pinned to cork blocks, and 2 of the blocks are shown. So we have a block, we have a pin holding up a rigid potato cylinder, and then some of the potato cylinders are going to be flaccid. Which solution would cause a potato cylinder to be the most flaccid? Flaccid means floppy. Okay, so the reason it becomes floppy is because it's lost the turgor pressure, it's lost the water. The water has gone out of the cell. We have the cells, the water has gone out. That means that there has to be more water inside the cell than outside, which means there has to be more salts, if we're talking about salts, outside of the cell than there are inside. Salts, sugars, and that sort of thing. Okay, So it has to have a low water potential out and a high water potential in. So which solution would cause a potato cylinder to be the most flaccid? It would be the solution that would be the most concentrated. Okay, and so that 0.1 mole per decimeter cubed, 0.3 moles per decimeter cubed, 0.7 moles per decimeter cubed, or 1 mole per decimeter cubed, it would be D. The most concentrated solution would mean the most water would be lost to the solution. Question 7. The data show the concentrations of sugar and starch in an onion. The onion is tested with Benedict's solution and iodine solution. Which set of results is correct? Okay, so we have 3.7 grams per 100 grams of reducing sugar in this onion, and we have no starch. So for Benedict's, that tests for reducing sugar, and it will go from blue through a series of different colors to brick red. And the iodine solution, that tests for starch, and that goes from a yellow-brown to black, blue-black. Okay, so as there is sugar, the end result is going to be brick red. As there is no starch, it's going to end off the same color it started as brown. So the answer here is D. Question 8. Which statement about the structure of DNA is correct? Base A always pairs with base C. No, A pairs with T. So base A pairs with T. Yep, that sounds like a good answer. It consists of proteins. No, it makes proteins. It is not made up of proteins. And D, it forms a single helix. No, it forms a double helix. So the answer is B. Question 9. The apparatus shown is used for an experiment on starch digestion. Which test tube contains the most sugar after 20 minutes? Okay, so test tube A and D contain starch with salivary amylase, so the amylase in your saliva that breaks down starch into sugars. And B and C contain just plain starch solution. So after 20 minutes, the just plain starch solution has no reason to be broken down into sugars. There's nothing that breaks it down. So it's not going to be B or C. So is A or D going to have more sugar? Well, that depends on the temperature. This water bath is at 15 degrees Celsius, and this one is at 37 degrees Celsius, very close to body temperature. So salivary amylase that's in your saliva is going to work best at body temperature, so the answer will be D. Okay, work best at breaking down the starch into sugars. Question 10. A student wrote some notes about enzymes. She wrote the 1 of the enzyme is 2 to an area on the substrate. This area on the substrate can fit into it to form an 3 complex. Which words correctly complete the gaps 1, 2, and 3? So the one of the enzyme is what to an area on the substrate. So the active site is complementary to the area on the substrate, and this area on the substrate can fit into it to form an enzyme substrate complex. Okay, so it's not just the shape, because the shape includes more than just the active site. The only part of the shape that you care about is the active site. It's not similar, it's complementary. Complementary means if you have a shape like this, that if this is your shape, the complementary shape would be the exact opposite. It would be this shape. That means complementary, they fit together. If it was similar, your shape like this, that's similar, would also look like this, and then they wouldn't attach. They wouldn't connect. You can't get one of those to fit onto them. So it's not similar, it's complementary. Enzyme product complex, no, it's the enzyme substrate. What you start with. And once it becomes a product, it breaks off. Question 11. An experiment was carried out using the apparatus shown. The carbon dioxide content of the water in each test tube was measured at the start and again 3 hours later. In which test tube would there be a decrease in carbon dioxide content? Okay, so remember, photosynthesis uses up carbon dioxide, so the CO2 would decrease. And respiration produces carbon dioxide. So it would increase. The CO2 would increase. Okay, so photosynthesis is what reduces the carbon dioxide content. So the one of these that will do the most photosynthesis is the one that is the answer. So the one that covers up the test tube with a black polythene to keep out light is not going to be the answer because the light is needed for photosynthesis. Now, is the plant going to do more photosynthesis or is the snail? Well, clearly, both of those do respiration, but only the plant does photosynthesis. So the answer here is C. Question 12. The diagram shows a plant cell. Which type of cell is shown? Is it the cuticle cell? Well, no, the cuticle isn't really a cell. It's a waxy layer on the outside of the plant. So it's not that. Is it an epidermal cell? No, epidermal cells don't really have the chloroplasts in. They're just there to protect it. So it's not an epidermal cell. Is it a palisade mesophyll? Yes, it's a palisade mesophyll. It's rectangular, it's a very regular shape, and it has lots of chloroplasts. Spongy mesophyll cell? No, they have a much more irregular shape, so there'll be lots of air spaces. So the answer is C, the palisade mesophyll cell. Question 13. What is the result of a diet lacking in iron? Is it bleeding gums? Nope, that sounds like scurvy to me, which is a lack of vitamin C. Poor wound healing? That also sounds like scurvy. Reduced number of red blood cells? Yes, that can be caused by a lack of iron. And weak bones and teeth? No, that sounds like there's not enough calcium or vitamin D. So the answer is C. Question 14. The diagram shows part of the alimentary canal. Which structure produces lipase? So lipase is the enzyme that breaks down lipids, fats, and oils. Okay. A, that's the liver. That doesn't produce lipase. B, that produces bile, which emulsifies the fats and oils, but it doesn't produce the lipids. It doesn't produce the lipase that breaks down the fats and oils. C, the pancreas. Yes, that produces the lipase. D, the large intestine. No, that doesn't produce any lipase. So the answer here is C. Question 15. The photomicrograph shows a cross-section through a buttercup root. What is a function of the tissue labeled Z? Okay, so first of all, this whole circle here, the circle that you can see, that is a vascular bundle. Okay, and the large circles, they're large so that they can transport water. Okay, because they are the xylem. All right, the small vessels, so these are the xylem. And so these bits in between here, those three sections there, they would be the phloem to transport sugars. Okay, so the middle section here, this little shape there, that is to transport water and xylem. So is it photosynthesis? Nope, that's in the leaves. Site of respiration? Nope, it's for transport. Transporting sugars? Nope, that's the phloem. Is it transport water? Yes, it's D. Question 16. Roots and leaves both act as a source and a sink for sucrose and amino acids at different times during the year. At which point in the year are the roots most active as a source? Okay, the reason it's a source at this particular time of year is because there's no other source. The leaves are often a source of energy and nutrients, sugars, because they do photosynthesis. But at a particular time of year, there are no leaves on the trees. So if we start in the autumn, there's no the leaves on the plants aren't really there, but they're actually storing the sugars in the roots. So the roots act as a sink in the autumn. So that's not the answer. In the winter, not really much is happening. So it's not really a source or a sink. In the summer, the leaves are mature, so the leaves are what are the main source. So in the springtime, there aren't really any leaves, and they need the energy to grow new leaves, and they get that energy from what was stored in the roots. So the answer here is A. Question 17. The diagram shows a circulatory system. So we have our heart, and we have the lungs and the body cells. So which vessels carry oxygenated blood? Okay, so from our heart, the blood goes to the lungs because it doesn't have oxygen. It needs to pick up oxygen, so it's not one. Once it's in the lungs, it picks up oxygen, so it sounds like it could be two. And then it goes through the heart, is pumped through, so containing oxygen, it hasn't been used up, and to the body cells. And once it's in the body cells, it uses up the oxygen and goes back to the heart so it can get more. So it's not 3. So the answer here is 2 and 4. D. There we go. Question 18. What happens to the heart valves when the ventricles contract? Okay, so let's draw our heart. This is our nice, simple heart that helps you figure out what you're doing. We have our heart. We draw 4 chambers. We have our atria on top, our ventricles on the bottom. In between the atria and ventricles, we have a valve. These are the atrioventricular valves. These two, this one and this one. Okay, we have vessels going in. We have vessels going out. Vessels going in. Vessels going out. Okay, so we're talking about when the ventricles contract. So the blood goes in here. And when the ventricles contract, they're pushing the blood out through those vessels. In here, and then out through that vessel. Okay? In these 2 vessels here, those are the semilunar valves. So when the ventricles contract, it's pushing the blood up. Okay, and if it doesn't want to go backwards, so these valves, the AV valves, have to close. So when the atrioventricular valves close, okay, and the semilunar valves then have to be open so the blood can flow up. So valves open. So the answer here is B. Question 19. The diagram with a structure labeled X shows a bacterium. This is a bacterium with proteins on its surface. The diagram labeled Y shows proteins made by the human body. Which row shows the correct combination for destroying the bacterium? So the first thing you have to notice is that the things made by the human body are going to be complementary to the things produced by structure X, the proteins on the surface of structure X. So Y will not fit onto structure X. We need something that will fit onto it, and that is this structure here. So if we look for that, that is one of these 2 options. Now, on the bacterium, the structures on the surface of the bacterium, those are known as antigens, and antibodies are made by the human body. So the answer here is A. Question 20. The graph shows changes in the volume of air in the lungs of a person at rest over a period of 30 seconds. Which graph shows changes in the volume of air in the lungs of the same person immediately after they've done 5 minutes of vigorous exercise? Okay, so when you're resting, you're not going to be having very deep breaths. You're going to be breathing nice and slowly and not very deeply. Okay, after you've exercised, you're going to be breathing much faster and you're going to be breathing much more deeply. Okay, so the rate, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 breaths in 30 seconds. So the rate is 8 breaths per 30 seconds to start with. So the ones that breathe fast, that have more breaths per 30 seconds are possible. If we look at this, this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's possible. That's 1, 2, 3. It's not B. Only 3 breaths in 30 seconds. That's breathing much more slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's possible. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They're doing the same number of breaths in 30 seconds. Now the depth of breathing. Okay, to start off with at rest, the depth of breathing is not very much. Okay, it's a very small. After exercise, you breathe much more deeply. You should have a much larger volume. So A, the depth is very similar to the beginning. It's not A. C, it's a much deeper. It's a much larger volume. Okay, and as we said before, it's not D because it's the same rate. So the answer here is C. Question 21. What is produced by anaerobic respiration in animals? Okay, anaerobic respiration in mammals. Is that alcohol and carbon dioxide? No, that's in yeast. Okay, alcohol and oxygen? No, mammals don't produce alcohol during anaerobic respiration. Lactic acid and carbon dioxide? No, it's just lactic acid. Anaerobic respiration only produces lactic acid, and as soon as oxygen is available, that lactic acid is converted back so it can do aerobic respiration. There we go. Question 22. Which row describes the functions of the bladder, kidneys, and liver? Okay, so which one produces urea, production of urea? That is the liver. The liver produces the urea. Okay, excretion of urea. That is done in the kidneys. Okay, and the storage of urine, that's in the bladder. Okay, so it looks like the answer here is C. Question 23. The diagram shows the structure of the eye. Which structure refracts the light? Okay, let's start with C. C is the fovea, and that's where most of the light is focused on. Okay, D, that looks like it's the retina. And B, that's the iris. And A, that's the cornea. Now, of all these things, when the light goes in, there's only a few things that can refract the light. The cornea changes the light a little bit. It's not the main section of refraction, but the cornea does refract light. The iris just changes the amount of light that hits the retina, and the retina and fovea just sense what the light is. Just sense the light, just detect the light. So the lens is the main structure that refracts the light, but the cornea also refracts the light. So the answer is A. Question 24. A student used two seedlings, X and Y, to investigate phototropism. The diagram shows their investigation. So we have a piece of glass for experiment X put into the side away from the light, and then after some time, nothing happens. The plant does not move towards the light, as you'd expect with phototropism. And experiment Y, the piece of glass is placed on the side that is closest to the light, and then after some time, the plant bends towards the light, as you'd expect. Okay, why does this happen? Which statement explains the differences in the results between X and Y? All right, let's look at this. So the auxin is produced at the tip of the plant, and it travels down the plant, but on the side of the light, it's broken down. So it only travels down the far side. Okay, but as there's a piece of glass here, it can't go any farther than that piece of glass. This one, it go farther down and cause the cells to elongate all along the side there, so that the plant can move towards the light. So, is it that the piece of glass destroyed the auxin on the shaded side of the seedling? It doesn't destroy the auxin. And again, for B, the piece of glass destroyed the auxin. Nope, it doesn't destroy it. It just stops it. So the piece of glass in X stopped the auxin traveling down the shaded side of the seedling. Yes. Because the piece of glass stopped the auxin traveling down the seedling facing the light. As you can see in Y, no, on the light side, it doesn't actually stop the auxin traveling down. So the answer here is C. Question 25. The diagram shows part of the mechanism that controls blood sugar concentration. A person does 1 hour of exercise, and starting with the pancreas, what is the sequence of events in which the hormone glucagon is involved? Okay, so glucagon, I always think glucagon makes it so that the glucose is gone from the liver and from the muscles. Okay, so it says starting with the pancreas. Okay, so pancreas goes up here. So is there more glucagon or less glucagon? So what we need to have it so that the liver doesn't store the glucose as glycogen. So we need to have more glucagon being released. Okay, in the liver, that makes it so as there's more glucagon, it means that there's less glycogen. It reduces the amount of glycogen because it's converting the glycogen into more glucose. Okay, so it should be 5, 4, then 1. That is answer B. Question 26. The graph shows the number of cases of MRSA in one country between 2001 and 2006. Between which years was the greatest change in the number of cases of MRSA seen? Okay, so the change, you're basically just looking at the steepness of the gradient. It doesn't matter if it goes up or if it goes down, they're just saying the change. It's not saying greatest increase or greatest decrease, they're just saying greatest change. Okay, so between 2002 and 2003, the curve was fairly steep. It wasn't too much. So this is A. Between 2003 and 2004, this is B. It's more steep than it was in A. 2004, 2005, it's less steep than B. And 2005 and 2006, it is the steepest. So D. So the answer here is D, as this line here is the steepest of all of those lines. Question 27. Which row describes sexual reproduction? Okay, so the gamete nucleus, the gamete, the sperm or the egg, is it diploid or haploid? The sperm and the egg are haploid. The zygote nucleus, when the sperm and egg have fused together, that's going to be diploid. Okay, genetically different offspring. This is sexual reproduction, so yes, there's going to be genetically different offspring, so the answer is C. Question 28. Which statement describes human male gametes, or sperm? Are they large or small? Well, they're small. Are there few or numerous? Well, there's many. Many sperm. And are they motile or non-motile? Motile means that they move, so they move. So the answer is D. They're small, there's many of them, and they move because they have their flagellum. Question 29. Which organ secretes the most progesterone during pregnancy? Is it the adrenal glands? No, adrenal glands produce adrenaline. The ovary, no, they produce some progesterone before pregnancy, and some estrogen, but they don't produce it during pregnancy. The placenta, during pregnancy, that's what produces the majority of the progesterone. And the uterus, no, that doesn't produce progesterone. The uterus is just the place that grows so that the baby can have somewhere to grow. Question 30. What is the role of mRNA, messenger RNA, mRNA? Is it that it assembles amino acids into protein molecules? Nope, that sounds like ribosomes. Carries a copy of the gene out of the nucleus? Yep, that sounds like a good answer. Controls cell function by controlling the production of proteins? Nope, that sounds a lot like the ribosomes as well. And duplicates chromosomes before mitosis? No, that's the centrioles. So the answer is B. Question 31. The diagram shows the formation of new diploid cells. Okay, so we have our chromosomes. They've been duplicated, and then the cells divide. Okay, what do arrows X and Y represent? Okay, so X, is that the duplication of chromosomes? Yes. Sounds like it's a duplication of chromosomes because you can't split the cell in two if you don't have a copy of each. Okay, and Y, is that meiosis or mitosis? Okay, remember, mitosis creates mitose and everything that's not sperm or egg. Meiosis creates sperm and egg. Okay, which means the diploid cells are going to be mitose. My toes are not my sperm or my egg, so it has to be mitosis. So the answer is B. Question 32. A man marries a woman who has a different blood group from him. They have 2 children, and the children have different blood groups from each other and different blood groups from their parents. What are the genotypes of the parents' blood groups? Okay, so this is one that is easiest to do on another piece of paper. All right. So this is one where you should find a blank page and just write it out. So the options A was IA, and IB. B, we had IA, and IO. C had IA, IB, and IB. And D had IA, IB, and IO. So what we're looking for is the cross that will make it so that all of the offspring will have different blood groups from the parents. And when they say blood group, they're talking about we have a type A, B, and O. Type A, that can be IA, or IA, IO, because IO is recessive. Type B, and we also have type AB, sorry. Type B is IB, and IO. Type O is just IO, and type AB is type A, IA, and IB. Okay, those are the blood types. All right, so let's do the first cross. This is a long question, so I'd save this one to the end just because of time, just to make sure you have enough time for everything. Okay, so let's do the first cross. Let's see for A. So we have our little Punnett square. We have IA, our little square here. Beautiful. I know it doesn't have to be perfect. You're just sketching it. By IA, IB. So what you have as a result, IA, IB, IB. Okay, so for this one, we have blood group A, and we have blood group B. Okay. Okay, so the children have to have different blood groups from their parents and different blood groups from each other. So we can have ones with different blood groups from each other, but this one would have the same blood group as this parent. So it's not A. Let's look for B. B. Okay, so let's try this again. IA, by IO. Okay, so we have IA, and IO. So there's only one offspring genotype, so they can only be type O, which means it's not B. Okay, let's try C. Okay, so C, we do IA, IB by IB. All right. Okay, so we have IA, IB, IA, IB by IB. Okay, so this one we have type AB, these two. We have type B, these two. But AB is the same as AB, and B is the same as, so it's not going to be different from the parent. So it's not C, so maybe it'll be D. All right. So D. Let's do IA, IB, IO. All right. All right, so we have IA, IO, IB, IO, IA, IO, IB, IO. All right, so A and O, that would be type A. BO, type B. So it's two different genotypes of the offspring, or blood groups of the offspring, A and B. And as this type from one of the parents is type AB, and this type is type O. So this one actually makes sense. The parents have a different blood group to each other, and they have a different blood group to each of their offspring. So the answer here finally is D. Okay, so it's D. So finally, the answer to that one was D. There we go. And remember, when you're doing a question like that, it's only worth 1 mark. So if that's a really long answer, make sure you save that one to the end. You don't want to miss 3 or 4 other questions because you wanted to get that question right. Okay, do all the questions that are faster, and then go back to that question. Just don't forget about it. Question 33. Sickle cell anemia is a genetic disease that is caused by the allele HBS. HBA is the normal allele. A woman does not have the symptoms of the disease, but her brother does show symptoms. If her mother and father do not have symptoms, which statement is correct? Okay, so the woman has the genotype HBS. So the woman does not have symptoms? No, that doesn't make sense because that means that she has sickle cell anemia. No, so it's not A. The woman's brother has the genotype HBA. Her brother does show symptoms. So if he was HBA, he would not show any symptoms. A woman's father and mother both have the genotypes HBA, HBS. Well, that makes sense. Compared to D, the woman's father and mother both have the genotypes HBS, HBS. If they both had the genotypes HBS, HBS, they could not produce a daughter with that has an HBA, because one of the A's had to come from one of the parents. So it's definitely not D. The answer is C. The woman had to get an HBA from one of her parents, and the man had to get, or her brother had to get the an HBS from each one of his parents. Both of them had to have the sickle cell allele for him to be HBS. Question 34. Over the last 30 years, some antibiotics have become less effective in treating bacterial infection. What is the reason for this? Is it artificial selection? Nope, not artificial selection. It's not people choosing to have less effective antibiotics. Is it asexual reproduction? No, bacteria do asexual reproduction, but that's not what causes antibiotic resistance on its own. Is it because there's more effective new antibiotics? No, if there are more effective new antibiotics, then they become more effective. Is it natural selection? It is actually natural selection, because natural selection makes it so that the bacteria that are resistant are the ones that are going to survive. So the answer is D. Question 35. The diagram shows part of the nitrogen cycle. Which row correctly identifies the bacteria involved in processes W, X, Y, and Z? Okay, so first of all, nitrogen going into the atmosphere, W, that is nitrogen being removed from being useful to the plants. It's denitrifying. It's removing it from its useful form. Okay? Nitrogen coming out of the atmosphere, turning into nitrates. That's caused by nitrogen-fixing bacteria. It's the opposite of denitrifying, so it's nitrifying. Plants going to ammonium ions. Well, the reason why it would go to ammonium ions is because they've died and they're breaking down. That's decomposing. Okay, and then ammonium ions going into nitrate ions. Ammonium to nitrate ions, that's nitrogen-fixing. It's converting it into nitrogen. Okay, into nitrate. Okay, so the answer is B. Question 36. The graph shows a bacteria population curve. In which phase on the graph is the number of bacteria dying equal to the number dividing? Okay, so in A, the population is increased because there's more dividing. There's more new bacteria. B, again, it's increasing because there's more new bacteria. They're more dividing than there are dying. And D is decreasing because there's more dying than there are dividing. So the answer is C. It's staying the same because the number dying are equal to the number of new bacteria, the number dividing. Question 37. Bacteria are used in genetic engineering and biotechnology. Bacteria are used because of the presence of which cell structure? Is it because they have a cell membrane? No, all cells have a cell membrane. Cell wall? No, they have cell walls, but that's not why they're being used. Cytoplasm? No, all cells really have cytoplasm. And plasmids? Yes, bacteria have these simple little circles of DNA that are easy to manipulate and easy to work with. So the answer is D. Question 38. What is an example of genetic engineering? Is it using enzymes to make washing powders? Nope, that's not genetic engineering. Is it using pectinase to make fruit juice? Nope, that's just using an enzyme to dissolve the pectin in the fruit juice to make it clear. Is it producing plants that have been given genes for resistance to insect pests? Yes, it's inserting one gene into another organism that isn't the same. Okay, so it would be C. Is it using yeast to make bread? No, that's fermentation. Question 39. What is least likely to result from deforestation? Is it an increase in flooding? Nope, increase in flooding is very likely to happen from deforestation. Is it an increase in species? Yeah, you're not likely to get very many new species by cutting down the trees, which are one or more species, and the habitats of many other species. Is it the loss of habitat? Yeah, you're likely to have lots of loss of habitats. Loss of soil, yep, as you cut down the forests, then the wind can blow the soil away as there's nothing really holding it in place. So the answer is B. That's the one that's least likely to result from deforestation. And question 40. Pieces of plastic between 1 micrometer and 1 millimeter in size are called microplastics. Microplastics are put into some face creams and are produced during clothing manufacture. They can now be found in increasing quantities in oceans all over the world. As well as their small size, which other property of microplastics can make them dangerous to living organisms? Is it because they are lightweight? Nope, but it means that they can spread to lots of areas, but it's not what makes them dangerous. There's lots of other things that are lightweight that are not dangerous. Is it because they are non-biodegradable? Yes, they don't break down in the environment. Is it because they're non-reactive? Nope. If they don't react, then that's not going to cause a problem. Well, it can cause a problem, but reacting is worse. They are toxic. Nope. They are actually pretty non-reactive, but they aren't. But it's not because. But plastics are not necessarily toxic. They cause other problems. The answer is B. They are non-biodegradable. All right, that is the last question on this exam. I hope you found it useful and you'll do very well in your final exams. If you've liked it, please press the thumbs up button. And if you haven't subscribed already, we'd really appreciate it. If you have anything you'd like to say to us, we like hearing from you in the discussion section below. And have a great day.